Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the City of Paterson Board of Adjustment meeting of March 10, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. via webinar session. Please let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. The notice requirement of the Open Public Meeting Law has been satisfied with respect to this meeting, specifying the date, time, and location included in the annual notice adopted at the reorganization meeting of the board filed with the city clerk of the City of Paterson, posted in City Hall, and mailed to at least 2 newspapers in accordance with the provisions of the law. Chairman Thaxton, may I proceed with the roll, sir?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioners, Commissioner Rohim, are you present? I hear talking.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Baralt?
Present.
Commissioner Furman?
Present.
Commissioner Minauro? I do not see her on. I will mark her absent. Commissioner Watkins?
Commissioner Watkins, present.
Thank you very much. Commissioner White?
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Arenas?
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Vega? Absent. And Chairman Thaxton?
Present.
We have 7 commissioners in attendance this evening. I will now proceed with the agenda. Chairman, may I proceed? Oh, now that I see Commissioner Minauro, are you present? Commissioner Karina?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Maggie.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for attending this evening. We now have 8 commissioners in attendance. This meeting is noticed pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act addressing effective coronavirus measures on the next public meeting. Consistent with the coronavirus-related restrictions of Executive Order Number 107, given on Saturday, March 21st, 2020, by Governor Philip D. Murphy, the Board of Adjustment of the City of Paterson will not conduct in-person participation of the public at all future meetings until further notice. However, public participation will be available by means of communication equipment pursuant to NJSA 10-4-8, commencing on Wednesday, April 23rd, 2020 at 7:30 p.m. Though there may potentially be a practical need for a limited number of administrative, technical, or other city personnel to be present in or near the council chambers, 3rd floor, City Hall, 155 Market Street, Paterson, New Jersey. In-person participation of the public is prohibited. Nevertheless, for reasons of compliance with the said Executive Order Number 107, public participation will be available by calling 1-973-321-1579, meeting ID number 711-680-001. On the date and time that the meeting is scheduled to commence, the public may also participate in the meeting by accessing the website of the City of Paterson, www.patersonnj.gov. Today, the first case that we have is JCM Investors, 1012 LLC, 175-177 Pearl Street, Lot 4208, Lot 39. This application has been carried from January 6, 2022. This is coming up for a vote, and only the vote this evening, unless there are certain changes that should be addressed by the attorney. This application is to seek to construct a 3-story, 9-unit residential apartment building with 8 one-bedrooms and
It was revised, Maggie.
I understand, but I'm reading from the agenda, so I cannot change something. that was given to me by the secretary during the day. If there's any changes, you can address it afterward. I will read this again. The applicant is seeking to construct a 3-story, 9-unit residential apartment building with 8 one-bedrooms and 1 studio apartment with a rooftop terrace as an amenity. The existing multifamily building will be demolished. The applicant provides full security. There is no parking, 3 feet from property line and 1 feet is proposed. 16 parking spaces are required and 6 spaces are proposed. This is for Used Variance's bulk site plan in the 5th Ward redevelopment RA-1, where 1 and 2 family dwellings are permitted. This application, although there may be changes, the only one that could address this for any changes would be the attorney, and only through the attorney on the board should address the matter that the ad is incorrect. I will proceed to the next case. Before so, is the attorney present? Is the applicant present on this application?
Yes, Madam Chair, and Mr. Chairman, the applicant is here. I am Michael Rubin, and I represent JCM Investors 1012 LLC in this proceeding. And we are ready to be presented. There have been some changes since the last time we were here, based upon suggestions by the board and your front planner, and we have acted on those minor changes, and we're ready to give the board the benefit of our findings and what we have developed over the last several months, and ask that the board be able to vote on the application this evening.
Thank you. Mr. LaRocca will address that after I finish the agenda. Thank you very much, Mr. Rubin. Next application is Day Properties, 9-13 Day Street. They skipped a number, there's a correction on here as well. Okay, 9-13 Day Street, 382, 386 Dakota Street, 388, 392 Dakota Street, which is block 6913, lots 4, 5, and 6. This meeting was adjourned from a special meeting on January 20th, 2022. This application is to demolish an existing 1-story commercial building and then construct a new 4-story, 30-unit apartment building on a 15,387 square foot lot. The minimum lot size for a 1 and 2 family dwelling is 50 by 100 in an R2 zone. The applicant proposes 40 parking spaces and an apartment vestibule on the first floor. There will be 30 one-bedroom apartments per floor. There will be 24 one-bedrooms and 6 two-bedroom apartments for a total of 36 apartments in the proposed building. The applicant will provide 40 parking spaces of the 55 parking spaces that are required. This is for use bulk, D variances and site plan in an R2 zone. Is the applicant present?
Applicant is present on behalf of the applicant, Alan Mariconda. Ready to proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mariconda. The last application is United Assets Management, LLC, 635, 641 Broadway, block 8417, lot 12 and 13. This is their first appearance. The applicant is seeking to construct a 5-story, 20-unit apartment building on a 12,508 square foot lot. The applicant proposes to demolish the existing 2-story building and then build a 5-story, 20-unit apartment building with 25 covered parking spaces and an apartment vestibule for garbage, recycling, and compactor on the first floor. The 2nd through 5th floor will each consist of 8 one-bedroom apartments and 8 two-bedroom apartments. 4 3-bedroom apartments for a total of 20 apartments. The applicant is proposing 2,900 square feet of amenity space and of the 4,200 square feet that are required. The applicant is providing 28 parking spaces of the 39 spaces which are required. This is for site plan approval, use variances, D variances, and public and bulk variances in an H1 hospital zone. Is the applicant present?
Mr. President, ready to proceed, Alan Maricondo.
Thank you, Mr. Maricondo. I now turn this meeting over to Chairman Thaxton. You may proceed, sir.
Good evening, excuse me. 9/11 Day Street, how many commissioners do we have that heard that case the last time, or Maggie?
Yes. Is this on 175 Pearl
No, Day Street.
Day Street? We have the following commissioners heard this case. Commissioner Rohim, Baralt, Furman, Minauro, Watkins, White, Arenas, and yourself, Chairman Thaxton. That is 8 commissioners in attendance who heard this case. The case for 175, 177 Pearl Street is up for a vote this evening. If you'd like to address that first, whatever you'd like, sir, I'm ready.
Yes, Mr. Rubin, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Can you confirm that 2 commissioners read the transcript?
The application, folks, is new, so I'm assuming Mr. Rubin is gonna go through the process again. Maybe Mr. Rubin can let us know that.
Yes, after hearing the suggestions of the board and your planner at the last meeting, what we did was we met with our client and we made a policy decision to reduce the amount of dwelling units from 9 units to 7 units. And we have prepared a plan for that. We filed it with the board and provided a copy to your planner so we can forward. So there is no question there are still use variances which are needed because we are not in a zone that allows the multifamily such as we are proposing this evening. However, Mr. Evans has prepared the plan and we do have our planner with us. We will limit the testimony. It's okay with your planner to just the change. What the change is because you heard really substantial testimony as to the rest of the application when we were here on January 6th, 2022. So if that's okay, we'll just go through the changes that are presented this evening.
Excuse me, Commissioner White, are you accusing yourself?
Yes.
Marco.
Yes, Commissioner White's recusing herself from this application. Madam Secretary, don't call it for the vote. Commissioner White, I'm just gonna ask, I know normally if we were live in City Hall, I would have you just, step down and go into the audience. Just for this application, just turn off your camera, stay muted, and then just come back on the next one. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner White. You may proceed.
If Mr. Evans can be sworn in for the limited testimony.
Mr. LaRocca, if they're not gonna start anew, then the 2 commissioners should have read the transcript, or one of them.
Yes.
Yes,
Has there been transcripts ordered?
Oh, we have them all.
I do not know who read it.
Yes.
In my honesty, Miss Melinda, so if you could tell me who read the transcript, was given the transcript, that would be great.
Well, I know from the letter that was sent when we.
I'm sorry, Mr. Rubin, I'm asking the court reporter.
Oh, okay, because I have the letter.
I sent it to all commissioners, but I did make a note that 2 commissioners that were not present would need to read it to vote on this matter.
May I ask who they are?
Give me a
Just for the
second.
record,
Give me a second.
okay? I have Osvaldo Vega
Vega, who's not here, and
Not
I'm not
here.
sure it was Minaro.
and Minauro was not here. I know who they are, just wanted to make sure that we had it on the record. So Commissioner Minauro cannot vote, and neither is Vega, unless Commissioner Minauro can tell me that she read the transcript. She did not. So I have to remove her as well. Mr. Araga,
How many do we have?
we have,
Six.
hold on. We have 6 commissioners that can vote. Daxton, Rohim, Barat, Furman, Watkins, and Arenas. Mr.
Council, council, what are your thoughts? Mr. Rubin?
We'll go with that, and, we'll move forward with the application.
You'll go forward with the 6?
Yes.
Thank you.
Correct.
Thank you.
Now that the administrative portion is complete, can we move forward with the first witness?
Yeah, go ahead. Mr. Evans, Lindy, does he need to be sworn in again?
I was previously sworn.
Okay.
Yeah. And if he's been previously sworn, we just ask Mr. Evans, you understand you have been previously sworn in this application and you continue to be sworn for this evening's presentation.
Yes.
Did you make some changes based upon the testimony given and the comments made by the board's planner and several of the members of the board as to the number of dwelling units proposed for this application?
Yes.
And as based upon what you heard at that meeting, did you in fact make changes to the plan of development?
Yes.
And could you advise the board what changes you made to the plan of development?
Okay, I'll share, the plans. Excuse me. Hey, presenting plans, which were revised. I'll get the revision date here. We have, 228, 22, reduced to 7 units. Previously, we had 9 units, and now we reduced it to 7 units. The building is essentially the same, and also we've made some changes to the zoning ordinance data based on the last meeting, and there are also changes to the refuse area, handicap parking, and those are some of the revisions we did based on the previous meeting comments and recommendations. So looking at the plan, first floor, we're showing the relocated refuse recycling, relocated handicap space with electric vehicle ready for energy efficiency. And then we have essentially the remainder of the parking underneath and to the rear would remain. On the upper floors, we have the second and third floor plan, which is identical. And I can zoom in a little more maybe and show us what we have here. We have the front unit is a 201, a 1-bedroom unit. That's 737 square feet. So it's a large 1-bedroom. Where 600 is the minimum. We have a large bedroom, open living, dining, kitchen plan. And then we have the next unit is the unit 202, basically 202, 302 would be. And we have a a two-bedroom unit. That's 1,055 square feet, where 900 is the minimum. So it's really closer to a three-bedroom in size. So it's a nice, large, open living, dining, kitchen. We have laundry facilities, and we have a large bedrooms, and we have the unit, two-bedroom unit 203 and 303 is 1,065 square feet, where 900 is the minimum. So we have a nice, large, open living, dining, kitchen area, laundry facilities. All the units have separate mechanicals, and then, as I mentioned, we have a large walk-in closets and large bedrooms for that unit. Upstairs, above on the roof, we have a large amenity space for the tenants with two means of egress, and we have decking and privacy walls for that area there. It basically says 13, I believe it says 13.
Mr. Evans, can I stop you for 1 second?
Yes.
Mr. Rubin, I've just been informed that Commissioner Rohim had a family emergency and left the meeting. You have 5.
Oh.
Yeah.
Now we're getting tight.
Yeah. Can't get much tighter than that.
No,
If you give me a moment and you decide to carry, I think I could work something out. But it is up to you at the end of the day, sir.
with 5 members, I really can't proceed. That would be fair to the applicant.
Okay, can I have a moment to speak to my chairman off the record, sir? Chairman Thaxton, may I call you, sir?
Yes, you can.
With regard to scheduling, correct?
That's correct, sir.
Thank you.
One moment, Marco, I'm gonna call you, cause I think I need you right now, okay? And I'll call chairman afterward. Is that okay, sir? Thank you. Chairman Dodson, there is an open space on April 14th or April 28th. That is all I have available unless he goes into May or June. April 14th sounds okay to me. All right, we already have 2 cases on. But this case, since it's already been heard, may not take a lot of time. Am I correct, Mr. Rubin? Mr. Rubin, do you hear me, sir?
I'm sorry. As you can see, we're in Mr. Evans' office. So, and Mr. Maricanda is also joining us. So we have everyone.
All right, I will repeat this. Gentlemen are listening now.
Yes,
April
thank you.
14th or April 28th?
14th, soon as possible.
April 14th, the matter of JCM Investors 1012 LLC 175-177 Pearl Street, Attorney A. Michael Rubin has been carried to April 14, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. Do you waive all statutory time requirements?
Yes, we waive all time requirements. Madam Secretary, is it possible that the board could specifically ask the 2 members who have to read the transcript?
Absolutely. I will make sure that they get the transcripts tomorrow and they will sign a certification that they read it. And that would be Commissioner Karina Minauro and Mr. Osvaldo Vega.
All right, as long as they have something specific, that they would read it and sign the certification, and of course, be here.
Absolutely. I will let you know if they are not, but we'll take care of that when we get there. So this application has been carried. You may
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, members of the board.
You're welcome.
Mr. Rubin, before you check out, there's some housekeeping that maybe I could address with Mr. Evans, so that we have it next time, I won't have to go through it.
That'd be great. Thank you.
You know,
Right here.
yeah, I want to streamline the process a little bit. So, Mr. Evans, you have a 3-foot offset on the front of your building.
Yes,
Then you have, the building is 73.83. You have a back offset of 21 feet, 21 and change, it doesn't add up to 100. So that has to be adjusted, okay?
okay,
On your zoning chart, you call density a variance, and density is not a variance. Multifamily does not have a density requirement, so that is not a variance.
okay,
But you did exclude floor area ratio, so that's a D variance that you have to include on your zoning chart. Also, no parking 3 feet to the property line, which is a C variance. Then you have driveway width on your zoning chart as 24 feet required and proposed 24 feet, but you called it a variance. It is not a variance.
Okay.
Your open space, you say you're proposing 1550, but on your plan SK1, you show 1330.
right,
The requirement for 7-family is 1550, you have 1050. Those numbers have to be changed.
okay,
The parking requirement, you say you have 7 spaces, you have 6. The parking requirement with the electronic vehicle goes from 13 to 12, but your proposal is still for 6. That number also has to change. Okay, and the application is now going from 3D variances to 2D variances, and then my list is accordingly. That's
So
it.
it's your opinion that a D5 density variance is no longer required?
That's correct. That's
So a
correct.
D4 and a D1?
That's correct. The multifamily does not have density. The garden apartment did, the multifamily does not.
Okay, so D4 and D1.
Yes. And then just those changes, and he has to add the variance. That's it.
okay.
Thank you, Mr. Paparazzi. I am asking you as well. Will you be able to send me an email to everything you just put on the record?
Yes, and I'll also send you Mr. Rubin's revised letter of intent, so that when you read it into into the minutes, you have it.
I would really appreciate that. Thank you very much, sir.
Take care of that. Okay, thank you.
Chairman Daxton, you may proceed, sir. We're completed with this application.
One question, Mr. LaRocca, could you find out how many objectors do we have for, 911 Day Street, please?
I will check into that. I do have a lot of objectors, so if you give me 1 minute, I will reach out to both you and Mr. LaRocca. 1 minute, sir. We have 7 objectors on Day Street standing by.
Mr. Mariconda. Mr. Mariconda,
Okay, sorry, we're on, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
okay. Do something a little unethical. 635 Broadway, how many objectors do we have?
635 Broadway, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
We're ready to proceed. I don't believe there are objectors, but I'll defer to your staff.
There are no objectors on Broadway at this moment, but I do have 7 on Day Street. And as you are aware, Mr. Mariconda, you have, give me a moment just to check this out for you. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 commissioners on 913 Day Street.
Mr. Chairman and Madam Secretary, could we verify with Mr. Rahim having departed the meeting, how many commissioners we would have that heard the earlier testimony on Day Street?
I just stated that. I have.
Spoken earlier, I want to verify.
I will do that for you, sir, absolutely. Commissioner Daxton, Barak, Furman, Minaudo, Watkins, White, and Arenas. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You have 7 commissioners in attendance.
That heard the earlier testimony, okay.
Okay?
Yep. We're proceeding with Broadway, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, for the record again, Alan Mariconda, my office, 726 Market Street, Paterson. On behalf of the applicant, United Assets Management. As the agenda indicates, this is an application where we're seeking site plan as well as use and bulk variances for proposed development on the site to construct a 5-story residential building with 20 apartments. We're presenting 8 2-bedrooms, 8 1s, and 4 3-bedroom units. This is an application that we have been working very intensively with your planning staff to put together some modifications and some downward reductions, and we've worked with staff, as I indicated, to hopefully present to you a final product this evening that hopefully addresses any issues that might be raised this evening. Again, use focus site. We're in the hospital support zone H1. This is an area where my applicant has had extensive experience already in prior approvals from both this board and the planning board with respect to multifamily housing. It's an area where he is extremely well versed in the requirements and the environment of this particular neighborhood. So we feel very confident that this final product that we're presenting to you this evening will reflect that working knowledge of this area in terms of what would be appropriate for providing needed housing in this area. That being said, I'm going to call on Mr. Evans at this time. I'll also be calling Mr. Williams and the applicant.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm testimony about to give us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
And your full name for the record, please?
Matthew Evans, architect, 470 Chamberlain Ave, Paterson, New Jersey.
Thank you.
Submitted as an expert in architecture.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Evans, you are familiar with this site, having been working with this site for quite a long time, is that right?
Yes,
And you're gonna be presenting your site plan as an exhibit here?
yes. I have a site plan, architecturals, and we also have a rendering we can share with you.
Sure.
Hey, Alan, can I ask you a question real quick? I don't mean to cut you off, but do we have all the commissioners available for this meeting?
I believe we had, every commissioner, as far as I know, there's no prior testimony, Mr. Reed.
Yeah, and Commissioner White, she didn't recuse herself from this meeting, did she?
I don't know of any recusals.
No, Commissioner White did not, thank you.
Thank you, okay.
Thank you, Commissioner White.
So thank you, I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Evans, you can proceed.
Okay, so we have, trying to zoom in on this a little bit. First, I'm gonna go to the title block. We have the original submission, 11/21/20, and then the latest revision is February 11th, 22. We updated the plans in accordance with the planner's letter and comments for refuse and even a electrical vehicle ready parking. And there were previous revisions for reduction of the plans, and this is what we would be presenting today, that revision date. So let me go to the first, the existing conditions is a survey plan by GB Engineering, and it shows two medical office buildings with mixed use. There's apartments above the corner building, 635, and this two-story brick building has offices and apartments for 641. And right now, there's parking in the back of the property, and it has basically it's very large impervious coverage for this site existing. And what we would be doing is removing all those improvements and proposing our present application. What we show is the site plan showing Broadway and East 28th Street, showing the site. It's a 5-story building with parking below and, entrance for the lobby is off of East 28th Street. Entrance to the parking, to the rear parking, and also access to the rear, underneath the parking garage is off of East 28th Street with a curb cut. And we have landscaping proposed around the building. And that would be the basic essence of what we're doing as far as the site plan. We show the zoning, how the site is in the Broadway in the H1 hospital zone. And then we have the site location, the tax map showing the corner building on this property, showing the location. We also show the H1 R3 low-rise apartment calculations for the property. Also show the electric vehicle ready calculations. So that would be what we're proposing, and we've updated some of those requirements in the zoning ordinance table in accordance with the last letter from the board planner. We going to the next page. We have basic standard site details in conjunction with the engineer, city engineer's requirements, and also ADA and other site improvement requirements. And then we show, the next sheet shows basically the subsurface drainage system, just showing more the topography and the grading for the property, in accordance, with our proposal. And then, we show it, also standard details, for the, site plan. The next sheet is a soil erosion plan, basically essentially the same as the drainage and topographic engineering plan. And then we have, going to sheet A1, is basically the ground level first floor plan. We also show partially on the ground floor plan the outdoor rear surface parking, which is 9 parking spaces. And then we show the elevator lobby, the stair number 1, the fire stair. We have a sprinkler utility room, package area in the rear of the lobby, along with mailboxes and access to the parking area underneath. And also we have the refuse compactor and recycling area, which has direct access to the travel way for the access on the driveway. We also show a bike storage, garage parking, which amounts to 16 parking spaces. And then we have 2 handicap spaces, and we have EV-ready parking set up for those spaces. And that's basically the ground floor plan. Going to the next plan, we have the 2nd through 5th floor plan and the roof plan. Going to the upper level apartment plan, the elevator brings us up to the elevator lobby. We have the fire stair adjacent to that. We have a refuse room and recycling area for each floor, and a garbage chute that goes to the compactor. And then there's also a utility sink in that refuse room, and that would be typical for all the residential floors. We have a main corridor down the middle, and going, that would take us to stair number 2, the other fire stair. And then starting at unit 201 to 501, it's a 2-bedroom unit. It has a large area for a 2-bedroom. It's basically the minimum is 900 square feet required for a 2-bedroom unit. We are 1,138 square feet. So this is a nice large living apartment where we have even more area required for a 3-bedroom, but we have a large 2-bedroom with 2 bathrooms, and we also have a large open kitchen with an island. We have a large side-by-side laundry room for this apartment, separate mechanicals for this unit. Going to unit 203 to 503, we have a 1-bedroom unit, which is 723 square feet, and that is a large 1-bedroom, and we have meet the 600 square feet, so it's very generous open plan with a large kitchen, a handicap bath, bedroom, living room. We have a side-by-side laundry room and closets, and then the mechanical room adjacent to the entrance. And then we have a janitor closet, which is for the hallway for the building management. Then we go to, I'll jump over here while we're here, unit 205 to 505. We have a 2-bedroom unit, 970 square feet. We have a large open plan for this as well. And we have handicap, it's all handicap accessible, all these apartments. And we have also 2 bathrooms for this 2-bedroom unit. Going to unit 204, 304, that's a 3-bedroom unit, and that is 1,411 square feet. It also has 2 bathrooms, a large walk-in closet for the main bedroom, And those other bedrooms are generous in size. The open living dining kitchen is also a large space. Side-by-side laundry and mechanicals separate for each unit. So for a 3-bedroom, the minimum will be 1,100 square feet. We're closer to 1,500 square feet, so that gives us a nice large open unit. We have unit 202 to 502 is a 1-bedroom. That's 715 square feet. And as I mentioned, it's similar to the others with an open plan, a large laundry room, handicap bath, large bedroom, and open living space for that. Going to the roof plan. So we show the 2 stairs accessing that roof area, and then we have basically using that as an amenity space. We show the we have grilling stations, we have a fire pit, we have decorative screening around the perimeter of the space, lounge area, some landscaping and picnic area, and those would all be basically limited to the tenants and their guests for the roof. So that would all be protected with guards in order to the IBC code. So there would be basically a private area up on that level. So going to the next sheet, we have the elevations. We have showing here's the East 28th Street elevation would be the main elevation based on the entry. So we have a large vertical glass element for the entry lobby and those lobbies above. We have Juliet balconies for the bedrooms. So they're not real balconies, but they have the ability to access open, get a lot of light and air in those units. And we have brick facade throughout. And then you can see the decorative wrought iron railings for the parking area below. We show this landscaping around the perimeter of the building. The Broadway elevation shows landscaping, perimeter, and you can see how the rooftop condensers are screened behind the parapet walls. Also, that rooftop amenity area would also be screened. We show the balcony areas and the large windows for all the bedrooms and other unit living spaces. Going to the rear elevation shows the open garage access, the access in the middle, parking to the left and right of that entry aisle, and then a little more simple rear elevation, but we have brick and large double hung windows in the rear of that space. And then the right side elevation, similar brick throughout, the stair tower element, and the decorative banding and decorative cornice for those elevations. As I mentioned, we also have share you with the board the rendering. So here's what we would be looking at the building. So as you can see, we have East 28th Street, and we have a large glass entry for that entry, and then you can see the grill work, wrought iron for the parking below. We have those balcony spaces above, and we have 2 different type of brick, and we have precast arches for those first floor level. We're showing it basically in context with the building down East 28th. You can't see the building adjacent on Broadway, but it's behind that tree. And then, as you can see, we have, put a lot of detail in some of this, and you can see how we have those cornices and the fenestration for the windows, trim work, etc., for the facade of the building. So looking at it, you have Broadway to the right and East 28th Street going up the incline towards the main entrance, to the, main entry of the building.
That would conclude, Mr. Evans' direct testimony. At this time, Mr. Chairman, of course, he's available for any questions at this time. Bearing in mind that there is planning testimony to follow.
Mr. Paparazzi.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I know, Mr. Maricondo, that Mr. Williams is the planner, but, I'm just going to, go over the variances since they are listed on Mr. Evans' site plan, okay?
Of course, of course.
Start with that. Obviously, the first variance is use. By the way, I have 3D variances for the application: use, density, and floor area ratio. So, the first variance I have is use. Minimum lot area required is 15,000 square feet, 12,508 square feet is proposed. Minimum lot width, 150 feet, 100.92 feet is proposed. Mr. Evans, you have 100 on your plan, it's 109.92. It's not a big issue, but
Okay.
Minimum front setback on Broadway is 25 feet, 10 feet is proposed. Minimum front setback on East 28, 25 feet and 10 feet is proposed. Then you have the side setback, 15 feet, 5 feet is proposed. Floor area ratio max is 1.4, 2.4 is proposed. Lot coverage, 20%. Max, I have 48% proposed. Open space requirement is 4,800 square feet, and proposed is 2,943 square feet. Mr. Evans, you have 2,900 square feet instead of 2,943. You show 2,943 just in your rooftop area. The density, 14 units are allowed and 20 units are proposed. That's third D variance. Parking requirement, 36 spaces are required, 25 spaces are proposed. I believe that is also including the deduction for electronic spaces. And no parking 3 feet to the property line, and I have about 2 feet proposed. Those are the, I think you have them all listed, Mr. Evans, so with that, let's go on to the plan. Now, under the enclosed garage, is there lighting? I mean, I'm assuming that you have the lighting, there's nothing here saying about.
Yes, it would be all, we'd have all LED lighting in the garage. Basically, being that it's under the building, it would come under the building code for lighting, so that would be addressed, I guess in a little more detail once we do construction and submit to the building department. But we would have full lighting, at least 30-foot candles throughout that garage space.
Okay, what about the 9 spaces in the rear of the property, on the north end of the property? You have 9 spaces proposed outside of the realm of the building. What about lighting there?
Yeah, so we would have building mounted lighting for that on a screen that would reflect down to those parking spaces there. So I
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's on sheet S1 or A1, but Mr. Evans, I assume then you're going to show the full candles for engineering because you do have a lot behind you to the north of the 9 spaces. So I'm assuming then you would show the full candles doesn't exceed the property line?
Yes.
Right. You show the which is good, the chute and the recycle area and then the compactor area. The garbage is going to be handled privately, right, Mr. Evans?
I believe so. We'll follow up with the applicant to confirm.
Okay, If you go to sheet A2, just the two questions on sheet A2, Devin. Units 205 to 505, you labeled all the laundry in the other rooms as side by side. I don't see it there. Maybe I missed it. Is there a laundry that is in 205, 305, 405, and 505? You have all side by side and you'll have them labeled. You don't have anything in those 4 units.
Yeah, we show, the only one that doesn't have side by side is that one, and it shows a stackable unit for, adjacent to the refrigerator, and, you can see it's on the hallway next to the bathroom, so.
Okay, you just label it then, Mr. Evans? Right, okay. Also now, on the same sheet, the fire pit, since you are proposing 5 stories, I'm assuming that it is gas.
Yes.
You might want to also label that as well. That, I think, is a safety precaution. Okay. Just on sheet A2, it's one of the elevations. Now, on sheet A2, you have the entrance door, and then you have the remainder of the building, and that is where the 24-foot ingress and egress is to the parking, and it looks like you show a tree. Is that just
Let me see,
on the elevation for East 28th Street, it's on A2.
yeah, that would just, basically it was, carryover, so we remove that tree, it's in the driveway.
Right, okay. All right, I think we covered everything. Were there any, Ms. Evans, were there any issues with not that I need a testimony on the variances, but I think you listed all 12. So were there any issues that, with the 12?
I think we've covered the variance.
Yeah, I think based on your report, we updated the plans in accordance with that, so I think, if you're okay with it, I think.
Yeah, I am okay. I'm just making sure that you're okay. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah, you did revise it, and I have the 12. Okay. That is all I have, Chairman and Commissioners, for Ms. Evans.
Any commissioners have questions of the architect?
Commissioner Baralt, I have a question for Mr. Evans. Can you tell me about the alarm systems and securities that are you implementing in this place?
It's gonna be a central, alarm system, which will be connected to the city of Paterson, police department. So the cameras and any alarm systems would be connected to, as far as, security would be connected to the police department, then also it's a fully, has a full sprinkler system throughout the building, and that has an alarm that also is connected to, the city of Paterson Fire Department. And there will be, in all the public areas, would have, security in place.
Yeah, are you gonna have any kind of personnel assigned to maintain the security and the privacy in the building?
Well, what we can have the applicant address, Commissioner, is that it's his practice and custom in as many buildings that he has developed over the course of time here. There will be a full-time staff that covers this building and other buildings with regard to security and maintenance, and Mr. Reed will address that. He'll be testifying next.
Okay, good. I'll wait for you.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners?
Commissioner
Yes,
White.
good evening.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Furman. Commissioner Furman, go ahead.
Lady first.
You're so kind, thank you. Regarding the parking, is this gonna be any parking for this facility?
That would also be Mr. Reed, Commissioner, but, he'll explain his usual practice. I believe he can address that for you right away.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman. This is Commissioner Furman. I do have a question for the architect.
Go ahead.
Mr. Evan, you stated balcony not real. What did you mean by that? About the balcony? About the balcony, you say they're not real?
I don't believe it was stated that way. You mean the rooftop terrace, Commissioner? I'm sorry.
No, the balcony on the side. So people
Okay.
can go and see then,
Okay, are you describing, did you describe the balconies in terms of usable space?
Oh, yeah, no, I didn't. Those are basically, Juliet, they're called Juliet balconies, so they're basically come out about 4 to 6 inches, and the door is able to open to allow light and air into the living room or bedroom. And what it does is it allows people to, have a balcony, effect without having a balcony. So it's a little cleaner of a design because it doesn't allow people to store anything out there. So it gives us a nice aesthetic look on Broadway and East 28th Street.
And it does allow some ventilation, you indicated too?
Yes.
Okay, good.
but will the tenant be able to use the balcony, like go outside, sit?
No, they can stand by, they can, have the same feel, but there won't be an outdoor, they won't be able to go out like 3 or 4 feet outside of the building. So it's basically at the edge of at the door. So it's done in a lot of apartments. Even some you'll see that they'll have this effect and the doors don't even open on some of them, but we have a full operable, accessible area there.
So it gives a nice sight lines for the resident, a little bit of extra ventilation and a nice cosmetic and aesthetic look. Without full usage, as an amenity space, I guess, is it right, Matt? Is that the best way to describe it?
Right, so we satisfy the amenity for the tenants on the rooftop amenity space,
Right.
which is, a little better for, the tenants to use. It's more private and, it allows them and their guests to have, some limited functions up there.
Understood. That's what I have for now, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Mr. LaRocca, could you,
Yes, thank you, Chairman. To the members of the public, if you have any questions of the architect, questions with regard to his testimony, you'll have an opportunity at the end to give statements or comments. But if you have any specific questions as to what you just heard, please call 973-321-1579. And when prompted to, you're going to enter the meeting ID number, which is 711-680-001. Once again, the phone number is 973-321-1579. Meeting ID number 711-680-001. Let's give it a moment. Madam Secretary, is anybody already on the line?
She's muted, Marco, so I don't know if she's at her computer.
Okay.
Mr. Miraconda? Mr. Miraconda?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Just give it 1 second. We're just checking to see if there's any callers.
Okay.
let's proceed. If somebody ends up calling in, we can always interrupt.
Mr. Maricondo.
Mr. LaRocca, can you hear me, sir?
Yes,
Okay, good. I had a little difficulty there for a minute. But no, we have no callers at this time.
thank you.
Okay, we'll proceed with Mr. Reed, the applicant.
You swear affirm testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Can't hear you. You're muted.
Muted.
Yes, I do.
Say your full name for the record, please.
Andy Reid, REID.
Good evening, Mr. Reed. Could you tell us your position with United Assets Management?
President and sole member.
Thank you. Of course, as such, you're fully familiar with this application. You heard Mr. Evans' testimony on your behalf
Yes,
and the dialogue with the commissioners as well.
yes,
Okay. This is obviously an area of the city that you're familiar with, as I indicated in my opening. This project, from your perspective, this site has an opportunity. Could you describe in general terms how you feel about it?
I feel real strong about it. I came to this board a couple years ago, and at the next corner of Broadway and 29th Street, diagonal crossing right here, I got approval for a 10 unit. I have a good tenant base there. That I basically have the same tenants I had when I originally developed that site. This site here is directly next door to where my office is at. In addition to my office, I had got approved from the planning board for 2-bedroom units above my office. So I'm like directly next door here. My office is open Monday through Friday from 8:30 to 5:30 and Saturdays to 1. So there's always someone around available there. I have a couple other properties in this area as well. And I have someone that comes and maintain and clean in front of these properties. I have someone that comes to take care of the landscaping and the exterior maintenance, as well as interior cleaning of the properties, the common areas. So I'm very familiar with this area and the site. I worked with Mr. Evans on the concept and the layout. We originally proposed on this site here 24 units, and prior to hearing we decided to reduce the unit count and increase the size of the units to make them more comfortable for possible tenants that we get. I provide my tenants at all my sites. I provide them free parking. Buildings are well maintained. The sites have alarm systems that's monitored by the alarm company, as well as the camera system tied into the Paterson Police Department system. We monitor our camera system as well internally. We take our garbage refuse through private services. We don't use we won't be using the municipal government services. We have we develop a compact system for this garbage, which with the compactor, it reduces the garbage and debris so small that it requires just a small dumpster that's about 3 feet by 8 feet that can be pushed out to the curb when the truck comes unload the trash, and they'll do that twice a week. So it will not be like a continuous flow of garbage. And then we'll deal with the recycles, and that will be put out for the city of Paterson recycling, because you have to get recycles to the city of Paterson. So that will be maintained in our recycling day, put out for the city of Paterson recycling to come and pick up recyclables. And again, our parking areas be well lit. The sills will be enclosed. They'll be well lit, and then we have wall mount lights on the exterior that will cover the parking in the rear. And we make sure it don't spill over into the neighboring property that's to the north of our property. The building, our buildings, the lighting come on. When sun go down, the lighting comes on and it goes off. At sunrise in the morning. So the building be well lit, well maintained. The common areas always stay lit 24 hours a day. Like I said, the building's sprinklers monitored by a fire alarm system as well as the camera system. And the concept of the Juliet balconies, I don't want to make it confused, is a balcony. It's like you have the railing to the balcony covering the sliding door, so you can open up your sliding door and look out as if you have a balcony. You see this concept a lot of times in the modern hotels that they build in like Miami, Atlanta, Houston, even in Dominican Republic and the Bahamas, the new developments, they all have this similar type of concept, whereas you don't have an actual balcony where you can step off on. And some people put like little small potted plants there, so they grow a little plant and greenery outside of their building. So you almost have like a balcony, but you can't like step out on or sit on it and stuff like that. But we do have rooftop amenities where the tenants will be able to enjoy the outside and from on top of the rooftop of the building.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Again, I want to just point out one other item. This particular proposal now develops, or proposes, I should say, 8 1s, 8 2s, and 4 3s. So you decided to go with a mix of unit sizes. Obviously, you felt from your experience this was a good idea.
Yes, well, honestly, I get a lot of demand for people for my properties, and they want to know if I have any 3 bedrooms, because obviously this is a nice area. They want to live in a nice area. But, so instead of just doing like all this 1 and 2s, I decided to put a couple of 3s. So I have a lot of people want to know if I have any 3-bedroom units.
Right. Okay, good. So we reach a range of demographics that way.
Yes.
Okay, that's all I have of Mr. Reed at this time.
Gary,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one question, Mr. Reed. Do you realize that you are proposing 3 electronic charging stations for 3 spaces?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Obviously, they're labeled on the plan, so I'm assuming then you know that they should be, obviously, they will be installed, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right. That's all I have for Mr. Reed, Chairman. Thank you.
I actually like to make my apartments a little like smart apartments, so bring a little upscale and a lot of like smart technology to my apartments as well.
Thank you.
commissioners?
Yes, this is Commissioner Furman, Mr. Chairman. I do have a question for Mr. Reed. May I please proceed, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman?
Go ahead.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Reed, since you're gonna be using a private company picking up the garbage, how often is the garbage gonna be picked up?
Yeah, like I said, it'll be picked up twice a week. With that concept, twice a week is more than enough because the garbage get pressed so small, like you wouldn't believe it. So like twice a week will be you could do a 50-unit building the same thing twice a week with the compact concept because it packs the garbage so small, like you wouldn't believe that it came from like 20 apartments. So they'll come twice a week.
And you're gonna have a compactor, correct?
It's gonna be a compact. That's what I'm saying. It's a compact concept. So the compact the garbage.
How's the compactor gonna be operating? How does it operate? Is it
But look, our maintenance guy would take care of that. All the tenants would do is drop their garbage in a chute. They'll go into the compactor. Our maintenance guy would turn the compactor on and it will compact the trash. The tenants don't have anything to do with that. All they do is drop their garbage in the chute and don't worry about it.
are we recycling as well?
Yes, that's what I said. The recycles get separated and they be stored away, and then they have to go to the city. We can't get private recycling. They have to go to the city of Paterson. They have the rights to your recycles.
Very good. Thank you. That answered my questions, and that's all I have for now.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other commissioners?
Hello, Mr. Anderson, Commissioner Watkins, how are you?
Good evening, Commissioner Watts. I'm fine.
The parking spaces, are they based on first come, first serve?
Okay, so obviously we'll make sure every apartment has a parking space. So I got 20 apartments, and we have, I believe, 25 or 28 parking spaces. If the need arises where I might need another parking space for another tenant, like I got an approval for development, right across the street, that I had, 17 extra parking spaces over the RSIS requirements, so if they're available, like I don't charge tenants for parking, so I have no problem letting them park across the street in the spaces I would have in that parking lot.
My second question, when tenants have a problem, who do they contact? I just want that for the record. And how long does it take for anything to get fixed?
Let me tell you something. One thing I do, I put together a very good product, and my tenants, they call office in daytime. They can email us, and there's another phone that one of my people from my office will have 24/7, even on holidays, to answer it. And I have mechanics that will deal with anything, whether it's plumbing, electric, or building maintenance issue, and we deal with it directly. But I let nothing a complaint last over a couple hours.
I appreciate those answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner White.
Commissioner.
Thank you for answering my question regarding the parking and paid parking. I appreciate that so much that we don't endure any additional expenses on the tenants, being that we're charging them for the rent. Do you have any other properties that have that roof type amenities? Or is this the only one?
This right, for me personally, this would be, this is, I got approval for 2 other ones that have rooftop amenities. So this is gonna be the 3rd one I'll be building with the rooftop amenity concept.
Okay.
So my first approval, but this will be the 3rd one, but I'm getting my construction drawings for other 2 projects. So I'm building those, and they have rooftop amenities as well.
Okay, so this will be your first one actually going through with having a rooftop amenity, am I correct?
No, what I'm saying is, if this board see fit to approve this project, this will be the 3rd project I have from this board, and another one from the planning board that has rooftop amenities. So when I'm building, this will be the 3rd one that will have rooftop amenities.
Okay, and how high is the guardrail up on the top?
Okay, so we have a parapet wall the parapet wall is about 3 feet, and then on top of the 3 feet, we'll have wrought iron fencing, which will be another like 42 inches, so it would be like 6.5 feet of, you have to be over 6.5 feet to go over the railing.
Okay, and also to, next to last question. The maintenance, is the maintenance personnel gonna be on staff there? Is he gonna have an apartment within the facility, or is he gonna just come in when he's needed?
He lives in one of my other properties, but like I said, this will be the 4th property I have within 1 block. So I have a property close to 646 Broadway. I have a property at 642 Broadway. This right here is, I have probably 643 Broadway. This right here probably be 635, 641, which would be next door. And I have approval for 1 across the street. So my maintenance guy lives in one of my properties that's directly across the street.
From where you're building now? The one
Yes,
that you're requesting for? Okay.
And my office is right next door.
Commissioner White, I just want to interrupt you for 1 minute, along those lines. Mr. Reed, in your, where your, trash chute is, you have the storage of recyclables. So, is someone gonna be there every day to remove the recyclables,
Every day they remove the recyclables and everything and store them in large plastic bags inside, like by the compact in the garbage room.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure that there was someone there every day, because, he's proposing recycling, which is not going down the chute or not going into.
So the recyclables won't go down, the recyclables won't go down the chute.
Okay. All right, and now the trash compactor, you said that, I think you can roll it out, well, I guess the dumpster, you can roll it out. Now, will it be is it gated in there, so you could open the gate and push it back in there and bring it in and out?
It's not that big. It's not that big, so.
Right, I know, I have one across the street from me now, so.
Yeah, they're not that big, you know what I mean? And one person can manage to just roll it out to the curb, so when the garbage guy come, looks around, throw in his truck, set it back down, and you roll it back in.
But is it gated? What I'm asking is it closed?
It's a secure, no, it's in a secure door. It's on a door where you can't see it. You have to open up the door and bring it out.
That's what I was asking, okay,
Yes,
thank you.
yes.
I think that's it, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Any other commissioners?
Commissioner Morales here, Mr. Paxton, may I ask a question for Mr. Reed?
Yes, sir, Commissioner.
Can you clarify for me, you mentioned about the parking, you have like 17, extra additional spaces across the street, is that your property? Do you have a contract, a leasing or something?
No.
that we can-
No, Commissioner, what I'm saying is, I have a property directly across the street that I own, that I got approved by this board, to construct 40 units there. I meet the RSIS standards by an additional 17 park spaces, so that if the needs arise, I need some more parking spaces, they're available, I have no problem that my tenant park right across the street. And cause I don't charge no fee for parking, so they can just.
That's right.
Across the street. Yes.
Yeah,
All right,
Mr.
thank you.
Reed,
That's all I have.
that wasn't part of this application. I don't know, I can't verify that number that you're saying. I assume it may be correct, but I cannot verify it because it was not part of this application. If it was, I would have had that number confirmed, and I could have confirmed what you just testified to, but I cannot confirm that because it was not part of the application.
Right, no, I didn't, this right, I agree with you. And this application is not part of that, but what I'm saying internally, because obviously having a tenant is more important to me than not letting them park in any space that I have across the street, so I have no problem, what I'm saying is, I want to keep my tenants, I want my tenants to be happy, I want to keep my tenants, and I would acquiesce to their needs. If I have a park space up, I'm gonna let them park over there.
In the future, if you're going to testify to something like that, you should make that part of your application through Mr. Maricando or Mr. Evans, so I could at least verify that you do have 17 spaces and it is across the street. Now, I remember it is across the street, but I don't remember if you have 17 extra spaces. So, that being said, if you're going to testify to that in the future, please make it part of your application. Okay?
I apologize for that, but thank you.
Again, under oath, we're Andy's adding that as supplemental testimony, but we understand that if that had to be confirmed, it can be, yes.
Any other commissioners? Mr. LaRocca, could you open it up to the public, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. To members of the public, if you have any questions of the applicant with regard to his testimony, please call 973-321-1579 and enter the meeting ID number 711-680-001. Let's just give it a moment, see if anybody calls.
Chairman, Commissioners, and Mr. Araka, we have no callers at this time. Thank you. You may
Thanks.
proceed.
Mr. Maricanda?
Yes, sir, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We call Mr. George Williams, our planner.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm testimony about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I most certainly do.
Say your full name for the record, please.
Certainly, good evening, Commissioners, Madam Court Reporter, Madam Secretary. My name is George Weedle Williams with an S, WILLIAMS, representing the Nishwing Group at 105 Grove Street, Suite number 3.
Good evening, Mr. Williams.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
How are you?
I'm well, how are you?
Pretty good.
Mr. Chairman, do we accept Mr. Williams as a planning expert?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Williams, obviously you've had an opportunity to initially review this site plan application and plan, and also prepare for your hearing tonight, as well as hear the earlier testimony. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Maricanda.
Thank you, sir. If you would, give us the benefit of your analysis of this plan from a planning perspective in terms of addressing all the zoning requirements and variances we're seeking.
Certainly. Of course, I did review the zoning code, the master plan. I've been to the site I and my staff on at least 2 occasions, if not more. We looked at the case law and planning literature in support of the release we're seeking. We also had a chance to read the board planner's 2 reports, the most recent one dated March of this year. And we represented this applicant on a prior application in the immediate vicinity for 623, 629 Broadway for a very similar development to this one, albeit this is a bit less intense than the one the board approved last year. Mr. Evans went through the project details. Just for the record. Again, it's property is commonly known as 635-641 Broadway. It's located in the city's 10th Avenue neighborhood and known in municipal tax records as block number 8417, lot numbers 12 and 13, as Mr. Evans mentioned. The aggregate of the 2 tax lots is approximately 12,508 feet, and it's a relatively irregularly shaped lot when you look at the 2 lots, property, when you look at the 2 lots together. As Mr. Evans mentioned, it is in the H1 hospital zone district. That zone district does not include multifamily as a permitted use, and so we are seeking a use variance for the proposed development, which is considered a multifamily development. And we're applying the appropriate zone standards for the zone district that does allow this proposed use. That's the low rise. Evans went through the project descriptions. I would just highlight again a couple of the amenities. The rooftop terrace, first and foremost, which is a phenomenal amenity in an urban setting. The bike storage, which goes to our parking relief to some extent. And the gorgeous design described by Mr. Evans, in addition to the electric car stations, which are appropriate in this day and age, of course. Mr. Paterson went through the variances with Mr. Evans. I would stipulate that I agree with that recitation of reliefs. They're both indicated and or corrected, indicated on the plans and or corrected in Mr. Evans' testimony. So they include the 3 D variances and a number of bulk and area reliefs and the parking variance. I'll come back to those, of course, in a bit. I would just submit to the board that they may seem numerous, but keep in mind that is in part due to the fact that the H1 zone does not include standards for the multifamily, and what's being proposed, even when using the R3 standards, is a bit unique. So there are a number of bulk and area variances, but I think they are all appropriate given the kind of development that's before you this evening. And so I will come back to those. In terms of some general planning concepts, the property is located about 585 feet west of the Barnett Medical Arts Complex. The site is in close proximity to the East Side Park. It's about 0.4 miles away from East Side Park. And the applicant has cooperatively worked with the city, particularly your board planner, Mr. Paparazzi, so we thank Mr. Paparazzi for that. And as you heard Mr. Anderson Reed mention, through that collaborative work process, the unit count was reduced, which allowed the design team to enlarge the units, which we think is appealing, particularly in the Hospital 1 zone district. If I can remember to share. I suppose this will have to be marked as an exhibit. By way of description, it's a format you've probably seen my firm use before. I think Eric DeLine represented the applicant for the last matter for 623, 629 Broadway. Very similar format for the exhibit, a group of images taken either from Paterson's land use documents and pictures that we took ourselves while out at the site in preparation for this hearing. Madam Court Reporter, what will we mark this as?
A1?
A1? Thank you. So beginning with exhibit A1, slide number 2 is a simple aerial photo just depicting the site highlighted in the pink or fuchsia color. You can see that it is a relatively large site in comparison to the other lots in the area. And as I mentioned earlier, it is an irregularly shaped lot. Behind our lot on East 28th Street, you can see another multifamily, albeit in a different zone district, and I'll discuss that in a few minutes. To the left of this image, if you're looking at it from a bird's eye view, you see a couple of other large rooftops, and I'll talk about the general land development pattern along Broadway, but clearly there are some other larger structures, multifamily structures in this zone district and immediate vicinity. Slide number 3 is just a section from the zoning map depicting the property again in the fuchsia color, making it clear that it is in the H1 district, as has been testified to by counsel in his introductory comments and Mr. Evans in his testimony. Again, we do border the R3 district at the rear of our site. Slide number 4 is a picture of the existing structure that will be removed at 635, 641 Broadway. And then the details of the proposed development are provided as part of our caption. It's worth repeating that the proposed floor area ratio is 2.4. And as you'll hear me discuss both in my proofs and throughout this exhibit, that 2.4 floor area ratio is less than some of the other floor area ratios for existing properties and for the floor area ratio for the recently approved 623-629 Broadway. Slide number 5 captures one of those larger multifamily buildings that I made reference to a few moments ago. This is 565 East 27. It also is in the H1 district and has a floor area ratio of approximately 3.2. Again, a multifamily use that's existing in the H1 district, despite the fact that that use is no longer one of the permitted uses in the zone district. But it's important to share this with the board. I know you know the area as well as, if not better than I, but in terms of the land development pattern in this particular section, it is a bit varied, and there are several examples of multifamilies in the area. Slide number 6 is I'll call it the garden apartment behind our property. I mentioned it earlier on when we were looking at the aerial perspective, and you can see it in a frontal view, slide number 6. What's interesting is because it's at the rear of our site, it provides a nice transition from the Broadway development that's being proposed, this site, and then some of the lower density development you see along East 28th in the R3 zone district. So in that context, what's being proposed fits nicely in this neighborhood from a planning perspective. Slide number 7 is the property that I've referenced a couple of times already. It's 623, 629 Broadway that was approved by this board late last year. And this property is very similar, or the development was proposed for a site is very similar to what's being proposed today, albeit again, what's being proposed this evening is a bit less intense, both in terms of FAR, or floor area ratio, and density. With that, I would just submit that, there's one more, I'm sorry, slide number 8 is a property that Mr. Anderson Reed referred to earlier. Also a recent development in the area, which includes residential above commercial or office space. That too is in the same H1 zone district. I'll speak to this again as I get to the variances, but for the record, I would submit to the board that much of what you're about to hear in terms of the requisite proofs for the requested release will be very similar to those proofs that were offered by my firm in support of this 623-629 Broadway application. Again, the only difference is that the application before you this evening is slightly less intense. So we're enthusiastic about that. With that, I'll stop sharing if I can remember that too. And then I'll move into the proofs. Bear with me one more second. All right, there we go. Thanks for your patience as I struggle through virtual technology. So that's the background, general planning issues, the recitation of the reliefs that we're seeking, and now, as this board knows, the burden is to provide the requisite statutory proofs, and each of those applied to the reliefs spoken to are confirmed by your board planner. I'll begin with the D1 use variance and then talk about the D4 and D5 for the density, FAR, and density variances. The D1 use variance, as this board knows, is required when a use is not among the permitted uses in a given zone district. The proofs, as you know, required for the approval of a D1 use variance are that A, the proposed development will advance the purposes of zoning or is an inherently beneficial use, that the proposed development is particularly suitable for the site, and last but not least, if you were to deny our application, it would constitute an undue hardship for the applicant. In my profession, and then the balancing is, as you know, the negative criteria. That A, if you were to approve our application, there would be no substantial detriment to the public good. Typically, commissioners, as you know, that means it would not negatively impact the community, change the character of the community, etc. The second prong of the negative criteria test is that there's no substantial impairment to the zone plan. And that language, that word substantial, comes directly from the municipal land use law. In my opinion, having been to the site, reviewed the plans and the application, and analyzed your land use documents, all in the context of the case law, there are sufficient special reasons or affirmative criteria and negative criteria for the board to comfortably grant this application, similar to the way an approval was granted for 623-629 Broadway. Beginning with the D1, in my professional opinion, several purposes of the municipal land use law would be advanced if you were to approve this application. The first is subsection A, which is, quote, to encourage municipal action to guide the appropriate use or development of all lands in the state in a manner which will promote the health, safety, morals, and general welfare. And this is a bit of a catch-all phrase. That's why it's the first one, our first purposes of zoning. But in my opinion, it's appropriate for this application because if you were to approve this application, we would be adding quality modern housing units to the city's housing stock, which would contribute to promoting health, safety, morals, and welfare. And in my opinion, although not a permitted use, would advance the intent and purpose of the H1 zone district by providing quality housing for those employees and employers of the H1 hospital zone district. Subsection I, to promote a desirable visual environment through good civic design. It's a two-pronged purpose. One is the visual environment, and Mr. Evans' testimony about the mix of materials, of fenestration, and some of the amenities, particularly the rooftop amenity, the wrought iron security for the grade level and subterranean parking are all, and the Juliet balconies are all aesthetically appealing and would make an improvement to the community overall. The civic design is also equally important, and if you were to grant our application, in my opinion, that would be advanced based on Mr. Evans' testimony, how the site is laid out, the building's juxtaposition on the site, and how it works. This will also be important as we get to the discussion about the FAR and density. In my professional opinion, the proposed development is also particularly suited for the site, in large part because of the unique size of the two lots in this area, the fact that it's a corner lot, and more importantly, given the land development pattern in the area, which is why I focused on the exhibit a few moments ago showing what the land development pattern, particularly along Broadway, is. And that does include a number of multifamily homes, specifically 623-629, 555 East 27th Street, 182-188 East 33rd Street. And I would just note that while 599 Broadway is in the R3 zone district, it is also a significant multifamily development in the immediate area. In terms of the negative criteria, so those are the special reasons or affirmative criteria. In terms of the negative criteria, in my professional opinion, there's no substantial detriment to the public good for all the reasons that I've mentioned thus far, and that Mr. Evans has confirmed in his testimony. I would go a bit further and say that, in fact, while there would be no substantial detriment, I would argue that there would only be improvements, primarily evidenced in the design approach from Mr. Evans' office and how it would, the proposed development would comport with the existing land development pattern in this area. Similarly, I would submit to the board there would be no substantial impairment to your zone plan. In point of fact, there are a number of goals and objectives that would be advanced if this board were to approve our application. For example, housing goal number 3 is to provide opportunities for the construction and or rehabilitation of affordably and market rate housing. That would be accomplished if the board were to approve our application. Land use goal number 1 is to provide an appropriate mix of land uses balancing the needs for residential, commercial, and industrial land uses with the needs for civic uses and open space and recreation. Again, given the existing land development pattern, this would come, in my opinion, from a planning perspective, an appropriate mix of land uses. Finally, the advancement of a state policy may be considered a special reason. I think, I submit to the board, it would be appropriate to consider smart growth principles as a state policy that would be advanced if you were to grant our application. Smart growth principles, as you know, include compact, dense development, more walkable neighborhoods, and the utilization of urban infrastructure as opposed to sprawl. I know that the proposed multifamily development is not one of the permitted uses enumerated in the H1 zone district, but if you were to grant our application, given the design and rendering that you saw from Mr. Evans, in my opinion, you would definitely advance smart growth principles. And of course, the state's policy for inclusion of electrical vehicles would also be advanced if you were to approve this application. So Commissioners, those are the proofs that I would put on the record in support of the D1 use variance. Moving to the D4 variance for the floor area ratio. As this board knows, the proofs for the FAR and the density are slightly less rigorous than those of the D1. Basically, the applicant just must show that the site can accommodate the excess in both floor area ratio and density. And there's court or case law that supports or gives the board guidance when it comes to their deliberation about both the D4 and the D5. The municipal land use law 40:55D-4 provides a definition for floor area ratio. I know the board knows this, let me just say this quickly for the record. Floor area ratio controls controls that control the intensity of use. They apply primarily to non-residential and multifamily residential structures, and it is defined as, quote, the sum of the area of all floors of buildings or structures compared to the total area of the site. Under the FAR standard, the applicant must show that the site will accommodate the problems associated with the floor area larger than that permitted by the ordinance. And that's why Mr. Evans' testimony was critical to our proposal for the FAR. You heard Mr. Evans testify that there is ample amenity space on the rooftop, that there will be parking space on the site, parking accommodations on the site, and we'll address the parking variance separately, but that the site works and is maneuverable despite the fact that the FAR exceeds the maximum. Similarly, for the density, the same standard applies under the municipal land use law, and density under 40:55D-4 is defined as the permitted number of dwelling units per gross area of land developed. We exceed the maximum density for the site, but as you've heard testimony from Mr. Evans and you reviewed in the site plan that's presented to you today, the site can easily accommodate the extra density. And I would just point out again for the board's clarification that when you look at some of the other multifamily developments in the immediate vicinity of this property in the H1 zone district, several of them have greater density than what is being proposed this evening, and those sites work. Certainly most recently, again, 623-629 Broadway, which was approved by this board last year, has a greater density than what's being proposed. And so for all those reasons, based on the testimony you've heard from Matt Evans and the site plan, it would be my testimony that this site can easily accommodate the additional density that's being proposed for this particular property. Commissioners, those are the three D variances, the D1 use variance for the special reasons and the negative criterion, the D4 and D5 with the amended criteria for deliberation, which just requires a showing that the site can accommodate the extra floor area ratio and density. That leaves the C variances. There are several bulk and area deviations from the code. Mr. Paparazzi reviewed those at the beginning of this hearing. Mr. Evans confirmed that those were accurate. I would add my concurrence to that and submit to the board that the C1 variance or C2 would be appropriate for the board to deliberate these variances. As you know, the C1 is a traditional hardship standard that requires a showing that the variances are required because of unique topography, shape, size of the property, or the C2 or flexible C variance allows the board to consider whether on the whole what's being proposed is a better zoning alternative to strict application of your code, and that there's no substantial detriment to the public good. In my professional opinion as a planner, the C2 context would be most appropriate for the reliefs that were recited by your board planner, by Mr. Evans. To that extent, I would add that there is a court case, the Pullen court case, which suggests that the board can look at the bulk and area deviations as a whole if you agree that as a whole the proposed development benefits outweigh the detriments. And so if the development proposal before you works in terms of the context of the surrounding neighborhood and this property, you can agree that the release may be granted because the benefits of this development outweigh any potential detriments. Under the C2 context, we have to show that the release are grounded in the purposes of zoning, very similar to the D2 and D1, so I will not belabor them. I'll go through them very quickly. In my professional opinion, if you were to grant each of the C2 C variances, and I'll deal with parking separate from bulk and area, but if you deal with each of the C variances for bulk and area, they would be grounded in the purpose of zoning A. Again, that's the kind of catch-all purpose of zoning, but also subsection I. And in this context, I would submit that the bulk and area deviations would advance the good civic design that you heard testimony about from Mr. Evans and how he designed this site to accommodate both the building, the parking, landscaping, etc. In terms of the negative criteria for the C variances, I will submit to the board that there would be certainly no substantial detriment to the public good by any of the bulk and area deviations, and certainly no substantial impairment to the zone plan. In point of fact, I think Mr. Evans has designed a very good, workable site despite the deviations from some of the bulk and area standards. In total, I would submit to the board that the benefits outweigh any potential detriments, and in fact, there are only benefits and no detriments. That leaves us with the parking. I would argue to the board that this is also a C2 variance, the flexible C, grounded in the same purposes of zoning. I would just go one step further and submit that the master plan actually does include language about the right sizing of parking in Paterson. And I'll just read a section of that into the record. Quote, while insufficient off-street parking can be problematic, excessive off-street parking has its own negative consequences as well. Providing off-street parking can be expensive and even cost prohibitive for a developer, and it also uses space that could potentially be put to another productive use. In conversations with the applicant, who has a considerable amount of experience with development in this area, Mr. Reed has shared that the ratio of parking that's being provided in this proposal is very similar to that of ratios in other developments that he has spearheaded, and he has indicated that the ratio should be more than enough to satisfy the real demand for parking at this site. There's a court case, Valenti v. Obsequion, that suggests that the board can comfortably grant relief from parking variances if, on the whole, the industry or the market in this area for this type of use, the demand is less than that which is being required by the strict application of your code. That is the case here, and we have the added benefit of Mr. Reed's testimony that should the board feel further comfortable, the applicant is willing and able to enter into an agreement that includes the property across the street, 620, I believe it's 629, with plans submitted for your board planner and engineer to look at, and a formal agreement that says additional parking could be supplied on that site if needed. There's also a court case, Homes of Hope, that suggests that boards can take into consideration off-site parking accommodations, particularly when those accommodations are in close proximity to the subject site, to satisfy the on-site parking requirements. So for all those reasons, I would submit to the board there are more than sufficient proofs to satisfy the parking variances being requested this evening. That would conclude my direct testimony. Again, in summary, in my opinion, there are sufficient proof for the D1 use variance, the D4 FAR relief, the D5 density variance, each of the bulk and area deviations in the context of the C2 variance, and finally, the parking relief also in the context of the C2 variance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Williams.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams.
I try to be brief for you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, may I,
Go ahead, Gary.
okay, thank you. I know, Mr. Williams is expecting me to, obviously disagree with him, so I'm going to, start a little bit. See, commissioners, Mr. Williams is giving his planning perspective on behalf of his client. My client is the zoning board in the city of Paterson, so I have a different perspective than Mr. Williams. Let's start with the use. Now, the use for this application does not promote the intended use for the H1 zone, because the H1 zone only allows 1 and 2 families. This is a 20 family. So the proposal to promote the H1 zone is not so. Additionally, the lot does not support the D5, or else there would be sufficient parking as per RSIS. It doesn't also promote the D4 because the open space you have is almost 2,000 square feet less than what is required. And you have to remember, this is required if you accept the use of a low rise and not a 1 and 2 family. You have to, all these variances that I listed, that Mr. Williams and Mr. Evans concurred, are if you accept the use on a low-rise building. Now, for example, the H1 zone only allows 1 and 2 family. So if you accept the low-rise application, you're only allowed 14 families, 14 units. So at what point does everything sort of catch up to the city? Now, I'm just giving everybody the perspective. It's not that I am against this project. So I want to give everybody the perspective that everything should be considered. Now, on Mr. Williams, he had on his slide 6, he showed the multifamily directly behind us. But if you look at that multifamily is 2 stories. We're proposing 5. Then he showed another one on East 27 that was on sheet 5. And that sheet 5, I'm not sure how he ascertained the floor area ratio without a survey, because the floor area ratio also includes the basements, unless he got into the building or he had some report on that earlier. But that building also seems to be in the neighborhood of 70 to 80 years old as well, which is probably well before many of the zoning requirements that the city has now. So, taking everything into consideration, yeah, I agree with smart growth, but at what point does the city say, okay, if everything is doubled or tripled, the parking, the negative aspect of parking is going to be more dominant than anything else, because when I went to this site, as Mr. Williams did, I couldn't walk. And again, we're talking 1 car. So, that being said, I'm just giving everybody the opposite of Mr. Williams, because Mr. Williams is representing Mr. Reed, I'm representing the zoning board. I want everybody to know that there are issues, but, you know, Mr. Reed does present a nice application. I like the fact of the security, I like the fact of lighting, you know. I'm a little concerned about the parking. Now, the parking requirement would be 14 spaces, but because of the Senate bill to allow a reduction, it's 11 because of electronic spaces. And this board has been here, and Mr. Williams has been there as well, in front of this board, where a traffic expert was telling us that there was only 0.8 cars per family. Now we're going to all electric cars per family. So in one case, the homes in Paterson don't have cars, and now we have electric cars. So, you know, I think we're going to grow into that. I think Paterson will grow into that, but it's not going to grow into it by the time that Mr. Reed is done with this application. Now, that being said, my only concern for the commissioners would be the parking, and I always defer the parking to the commissioners. Just take that into consideration. I know Mr. Reed had made some mention, that also should be, in the application with a cross lease or an agreement, so that I could reference that and I could say that, yes, Mr. Williams is right, that it is in close proximity, and there is extra parking. I believe there is, but that doesn't necessarily mean that has to stay. Without a lease or without an agreement, Mr. Reed can sell one of the buildings, or he can sell both, and then that agreement would be done. So, that is my only concern. I agree with Mr. Williams on, on the development. Where I disagree is, I would like to see some of these downsized somewhat to go to the low-rise requirements, especially when you're only allowed 1 and 2 families. When you're allowed 1 and 2 families in the zone, and you go to 20, at one point, and maybe not yet, but at one point it's going to catch up to the city. And I just want, I want the commissioners to be aware, that this is something that you should look at now and in the future as well. But as a whole, I like Mr. Reed's presentation, and my only concern, in which I would defer to you, commissioners, is the parking. That's all I have, Chairman and Commissioners, for Mr. Williams' testimony.
Any commissioners?
Commissioner Watkins, Mr. Reed, are you willing to bring the units down to 14 versus 20 in order to have this application passed?
To be honest with you, no, Commissioner. I mean, I originally had it at 24, and I took down my own to 20. I believe it's a good application. Right next door, where Mr. Williams showed the slide, that building there with the 3-story building, that's where my office is at. Those 4 apartments are up there. That's 4 2-bedrooms apartment. I have 6 parking spaces for that floor 2-bedroom apartment, and only the tenants only utilize 3 of them. Each tenant only has 1 vehicle. I have no parking issues with my approval that I had, the 10 units across the street at 642, 648 Broadway. We have plenty of parking over there on the street. And this site here, I know Mr. Paparazzi said when he came there, he couldn't find no parking, but even on my lot, there's plenty of parking, and obviously across the street at 623, there's always parking on that lot there, and there's always parking along the curbside there. Even on Sundays, there's a church directly across the street there that they have no parking, and you still find parking over there. So I have no parking issue with any of my tenants or myself and my office at that location. We have 0 parking issues. I mean, I strongly believe in this project. I think it's a good project. I think it's good for the neighborhood. I think it's good for the city. I think it's gonna stand out. People traveling along that Broadway corridor, they're gonna look up there and they're gonna see wow, this is a real nice building here. I mean, it's honestly, I took it down on my own to the level of 20 units, and it's to the point where I know it's probably not this board concern, but at that day, it's not financially feasible for me to do the project. So I want this project to stay on its own. I'm gonna ask this board to consider my application in its totality for the 20 units, and it's gonna be either up and down vote, and I'm gonna have to live with whatever this board decides.
Mr. Reed,
I agree with you. It is a beautiful development. The other project that was passed, was it through zoning or was it through planning?
It was through the zoning board of adjustment, and the RSIS standards were met for parking, and we exceeded it by 17 parking spaces. There was a professional planner representing this board there that concurred with all of that. I have no problem writing a lease for my other projects saying that if the need arises, I need some extra parking spaces, I would have no problem with my tenants using that parking spaces. Again, I don't charge no rent for parking or anything, so I have no problem with them, using that parking. That parking space over there, and I don't mean that, that's not part of this application, but going back to the application, I incurred a cost of additional $1 million to build a double layer of parking over there to have all this access parking. So like, I really don't foresee having a parking issue at this site here, and like I said, if I need some more space, I have no problem letting my tenants park right across the street there. But, I'm gonna hold, firm to this application, and I'm gonna respectfully request and hope this board, see to it to approve this application. But if not, I have to go with, whatever this board decides on this 20-unit application.
Thank you, Mr. Reed, if I could.
Okay, thank you for that. You have,
Thank you.
Mr. Araconda?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Mr. Reed, again, I know Mr. Williams might have touched on it, but Broadway is a main public transportation thoroughfare as well, is that right?
It is.
Yes, you have the public transportation as well as you have the private, jitney buses, and like I said, next door, I have the 4 two-bedroom units. Three tenants have vehicles, and they have 1 vehicle for each one of those units, and there's no issues right now. I see tenants even from 646. They use the public transportation. I see a lot of rideshare comes pick these tenants up and everything. I honestly don't. I have no issue right now. I have 4 properties there. I have no issue with parking as right now. I don't have no parking. I mean, maybe one day there might be a parking issue there. I don't think we're at that level right now. You know what I mean? So I don't want to be held to the standard of something that might happen, 5 years, 10 years from now. You know what I mean? But like I said, I incurred an extra $1 million in expense to build a double layer of parking right across the street, and I have 17 extra parking spaces on that application that was approved. I have no issue writing a lease for my other property for if there's any demand for parking, they could park over there. Like I said, it's not like I break the parking space out. I give it to them.
You would accept that as a condition if that's necessary?
I have no issue with that.
Okay.
But the question was not the parking, it was the units, right, Gary?
Yeah, both questions.
Yeah, that's one of the variances, Commissioner. And I alluded to the fact that the H1 zone only allows 1 and 2 family homes. If you go to the low rise, which he is asking for, the low rise asks for 14 units. So he's well beyond what is intended for the H1 zone, and he's still beyond what is required in the low rise. But the units would drop everything, I guess that's what you're asking. My concern really wasn't the units as much as the parking, and only because the parking in all the applications I visit, or I would say at least 95, if I can't park, I have to tell you that. If I can't park during the day, when people are usually visiting, working, shopping, how do you think it's going to be at night if I can't park during the day? And that's why I bring it to your attention, but I also defer it to you because I know you know the area even at night, which obviously I don't know it as well as you do. So that's why I always defer the parking to the commissioners. But I want you to be aware of that. I know there was some concern from the municipal level about the parking, and I can't remember too many applications where the parking was met. That's all, and eventually it'll catch up to the city, and unfortunately, and I think at that point there's going to be a problem.
But what we'd like to do, Mr. Chairman, is give Mr. Williams the opportunity to respond with respect to the commissioner's question and Mr. Paparassi's analysis of that question and answer with regard to the suitability of this number of units. With the very strong parking ratio we believe we have, frankly, and all the other testimony in terms of why the relief should be granted. We understand we need the use variances before this board, and that's why this board is constituted, to give us a fair and objective analysis of the suitability of granting those variances. So, Mr. Williams, if I could have you respond.
Yeah, but Alan, I just want to say this right here. I just got to say this here, because I've been at this location now for 8 years. And if there was a situation where you can't find a park around there in the daytime, even at nighttime, unless there must have been a big funeral at that church across the street there when you came there, because there is always parking around there on 20th Street, on Broadway, there's always parking there. And I have no house there, so I'm not saying you couldn't find no parking space there, but it must have been some type of big funeral or something at that church that's across the street there, because
Thank you, Chairman, that's it.
there, so.
Mr. Reed, I think the commissioners understand the credibility of your testimony on that point, and I hope that their own experience and knowledge of the area will allow them to concur with you. But I would like the opportunity to have Mr. Williams respond as well.
Certainly, and I'm going to begin by saying I definitely agree with Mr. Paparazzi's analysis and how he framed his responsibility to the city and the board. I would just add a bit more flavor to my original testimony. Mr. Americana, you were correct. I neglected to mention the bus routes along this area, bus route 171, 770, and the jitney, as Mr. Reed mentioned. That's significant as the board members consider the parking variance, whether you look at the residential site improvement standard or as a C2 variance. Both contexts allow the board to consider if there are alternatives to the strict application of your parking code. One of them is certainly proximity to public transportation. The other is alternate forms of transportation. I did not mention the amenity or repeat the amenity that Mr. Evans mentioned when he spoke about the bike storage, which is an important amenity in contemporary urban development, because it gives residents an opportunity to use some other form of transportation than the single-use vehicle. Secondarily, while the Valenti court case speaks specifically about what the real industry demand is, in this particular case, you have a developer who is very familiar with this area and has similar developments in the immediate vicinity and can speak directly to what the real parking demand is. But more importantly, I can't overemphasize how important it is for the board to consider the opportunity for overflow parking at the other site should that be necessary. And you've heard from the applicant, spot on with the Homes of Hope court case, that he is willing as a condition of approval to provide some sort of formal agreement and submit plans for the other site so that the board professionals will be comfortable that there are indeed additional parking spaces available across the street that could satisfy on-site parking demand. Even if we submit to you that that demand will not occur, we have the safety valve of the off-site parking across the street. Each application is to be judged on its own merit. I know I referred to 623-629 Broadway several times. I didn't mean to clobber the board with the repetition, but I thought it was really important in the context of what you're being asked to approve this evening. Specifically, the board, not more than 4 or 5 months ago, approved a similar application in 623-629 Broadway, which had a greater FAR. That FAR that was approved was 3.7, and you've heard that we're actually requesting a lower FAR for this matter. The density was 40 dwelling units per acre, also which is greater than that which we are proposing this evening. So for the very same reasons that this board was comfortable in approving 623-629 Broadway in November of last year, my planning testimony to you would be you could and should have the same comfort level with this application, in large part because the applicant met the board professionals and the commissioner's suggestions to actually reduce the unit count and to make this a less intense development than what was previously approved last year. So for all those reasons, I would respectfully submit that the board could comfortably grant this application.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr.
Thank
Williams.
you, Mr. Williams.
Yeah, Mr. Williams, the difference though, and I'm gonna respond to your response. The difference though, on 623, the density was greater, the floor area was greater. but we met the parking, which is always my biggest concern. So that's where it's different. That's number one. Number two, when I called New Jersey Transit some time ago, and I don't know the bus routes that you just mentioned, but most of them stop at 6 o'clock, and most of them don't run on the weekend. So, and I know Mr. Maricon is shaking his head, but I called and they told me that. So if they're
You're not true,
mistaken,
Mr. Paparazzi.
well,
I think all the commissioners will disagree with you as well as everybody here tonight.
well,
These buses go to New York George Washington Bridge. These buses run all night.
there was testimony that one ran all night last week last meeting by Mr. Korak, and I found out that is not true. The one
This around here, Broadway? For this around here, Broadway?
No, Mr. Reed, let me finish. There was an application on Main Avenue, and the application said that this one ran 24/7, and that was not correct, because I checked on it. So, I'm just telling you that, I'm getting this from NJ Transit. So, from now on, if this is what the case is going to be, I'm gonna get the bus routes, and I'll have New Jersey Transit tell me when they're gonna run, and whether they run on weekends, and whether they stop at 6 o'clock, and I'll have that in writing for you, Mr. Maricondo, but
Gary,
I'm telling you,
We'll present them before you even get to that point.
Gary,
okay,
These buses run to New York.
Gary,
yes, Mr. Chairman.
the buses still run up and down Broadway. They run like, they have to go to the George Washington Bridge. They run up and down Broadway. The Jimmy buses might stop, but the 161 and 770, they run till about 12 o'clock at night, or later than that. But they do run. I mean, I understand the parking, but, it's 623, and this project is completely different. So,
Yes, I know. I'm not arguing the fact, I'm just giving some of the facts that I had, as well as Mr. Williams gave his initial response.
I understand that.
And folks, I'm gonna tell you again, I like the project. I'm just letting you know everything that's going on. I'm not really against the project. So, Mr. Reed, you're getting, you might be getting the wrong information. I'm telling the board exactly, and if Mr. Williams tells me I'm wrong, then he can explain to me how. I'm telling you what the issues are. I'm defending, my client is the zoning board of Paterson and the city of Paterson. Mr. Williams is going to protect you. I have to protect them. I have to let you.
Yeah, but I respect that, Gary. I respect that, Gary, and we all, the board and myself, we all love the city of Paterson. But
One
it's just a
at
matter
a
of fact-
time. No
It's just a
one
matter of fact that these buses run
Excuse
all
me?
night.
Mr. Reed, excuse me, one at a time, the court reporter cannot hear all
I
of you.
apologize.
Thank you very much. Excuse me, Mr. Paparazzi as well. We're all here. So which one will speak first? Chairman Daxton.
Gary, go ahead and finish your statement.
Yeah, the chairman cleared up the buses. I'm not complaining about the bus route now. I'm just telling you what, I was alluding to all before. So, I'm really not against the project. I would like to have seen it less so that the parking was met, but, quite frankly, I don't have too many issues with the parking and, with the application. The biggest issue I have is the parking, and I defer that to the commissioners.
Yeah, I agree with you, Gary, but a lot of that parking situation doesn't come from this board. It comes from the planning board.
Yeah, that's true. And it comes from, past applications and past years.
So the parking is our problem, but it really isn't because they grant everything. So, I mean.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I just respectfully ask this board to consider my application as a standalone application, not any other application, Main Street or any other street. And I know Mr. Paparazzi represents the board, and I know Mr. Williams represents me in my application. But at the end of the day, those board members and myself, we all love the city of Paterson and we represent the city of Paterson. I reduced it down from 24 units to 20 units because I want to increase the size of the units so my tenants have a very comfortable unit, that they're not boxed in, that they have breathing space in it. I'm putting extra amenities there and extra facades. So I want this to be a beautiful building and for people to travel the Broadway corridor and see something really nice there. I didn't try to go any chintzy on this project here. It's because I'm not just trying to build a building and make some money. I'm doing it because I want to see Paterson as best redevelopment, and I love the city of Paterson, and I will love it to the day I die. And I'm pretty sure these commissioners on this board love this city of Paterson as well as I do, and want to see Paterson have better days again. That's all I got to say.
Thank you.
I believe Mr. Williams, are you finished?
I am, Mr. Chairman, unless you'd like me to continue.
No, next,
I think we're good.
Would you like me to open it up to the public or the commissioners?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm finished.
Peggy, what did you say?
No, it's fine.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, do you wanna open it up to the commissioners or?
Yeah, I'm getting ready to open it up to the commissioners now.
Okay, let me open it up to the public first. Is that okay, sir?
Go ahead.
Mr. LaRocca, would you actually like to open it up to the public, sir?
Sure. To the members of the public, if you have questions of this witness, you could call in at 973-321-1579 and enter meeting ID number 711-680-0001. Let's give it a moment to see if anybody calls.
Chairman Jackson, commissioners, and Mr. LaRocca, we have no callers at this time. You may proceed.
Any commissioners have questions of, for Mr. Williams?
Commissioner White.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Okay, so, I know the client, Mr. Anderson, mentioned that he has 17 additional spaces, but it was not part of this parcel. So is it possible, and this is going to be also for Gary, can we get a rider or some type of amendment to be included with this to say that these additional 17 spaces will be available if needed?
Yeah, I have no problem with that.
Mr. Anderson?
If Mr. Reed wants to do that, I have no problem.
Mr. Reed?
Commissioner, as I stated before, I have no problem.
Okay, well, let's do that. I
As a
think,
condition, that if my tenants need parking and I have parking over there, that they can use those parking. I have no problem with that.
okay, well, let's just add that for the record and just put that on file, because the issue for me basically is like, and there's a beautiful building that you're building, but my also concern is just making sure that the tenants do have adequate parking. I'm quite sure there is busing, there's the car shares and stuff like that, but there are more cars on the streets than anything. So I cannot say, well, your tenants will not have any cars, because that's not going to be a factor. But I want to know that at least in the event that if there's if just two people living in a household and they both have cars, at least there's adequate space for them to park these cars.
Absolutely.
I'm familiar with the area, so there is a lot of parking there. I've been in that area, but in the event that the parking is needed, I want to have something on file saying that you will have those additional 17 spaces that was not part of this
I have
parcel.
no issue with that, Commissioner. I have no issue with that.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner White, thank you for that. Mr. LaRocca will address this at the end. Am I correct?
We'll make it a condition in the resolution.
Thank you very much, sir.
But just, Commissioner, just for the record, so you understand, it's gonna be very basic that he's just gonna agree to make it available, and that they can utilize it. We don't know. We don't know how many cars are at that location.
Right, I understand.
So it's gonna be very basic, which is fine.
I understand.
Okay.
I'm okay with that, as long as it's on the record that I did mention that, and he also mentioned the 17 space that he did have available, so let's just take advantage of that.
Any other commissioners? Okay, Mr. Mariconda?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I realize the hour is late. We'll be very brief. I think the board has given this application a very thorough review and analysis. I thank commissioners as well as your planning staff for the presentation of dialogue this evening. We feel very strongly that based upon our site plan and planning testimony, as well as the very passionate testimony of the applicant in this case, that there is very strong basis for granting the site plan use and bulk variances that are being sought. I won't review all that testimony. It's very clear on the record. I ask the board's consideration to give this site an approval with the conditions cited by board council and give this area another opportunity to grow and develop and provide needed housing in this particular hospital zone, which, as Mr. Reed indicates, we think will be a landmark place for residents and visitors to the city of Paterson to observe the progress that's being made in this area for residential housing. Thank you.
Gary?
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Commissioners, if you vote to approve the application, there are just a few conditions. One, Mr. Evans, either put a note on the plan A1 for lighting, for those line spaces in the rear, or possibly you can show the wall-mounted units on sheet A2 on your rear elevation, whichever is easier. On A2, you also have to remove the tree that's in the driveway.
Right. Got it.
Label the fire pit, a gas fire pit. Label that laundry in the rooms 205, 305, 405, and 505 as the laundry room. And on the zoning chart, Mr. Evans, you have 28 spaces provided. It's actually 25. The 3 spaces for the electronic vehicles is a reduction in the amount required. So the amount you're providing is still 25. So the total required instead of 39 should be 36, and the amount required should be 25. It's just you subtracted and added in the wrong spot. So that needs to just be revised. Whatever agreement, Mr. Mariconda, that you're going to provide to Mr. LaRocca, just for some cross-reference on possible over-parking, that would also be one of the conditions.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's all I have, commissioners. Thank you. We've already beaten up this application as much as we can, and everyone knows all the issues. So, thank you for your indulgence.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion.
Commissioner Furman,
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I'd like to make a motion on this application. And before I make the motion for the record, I would like to say I have a good feeling that Mr. Reed is going to be able to handle any parking issue. The advantage on this application is he owns all the property very close by, and I take that in consideration. And under any condition made by our planner, my vote is yes for approval.
Commissioner Watkins, second.
Commissioner Baralt, second.
Excuse me, but we have,
Yes.
We have a second already, Baralt.
excuse me, may I interject as your secretary, please? I have a first motion by Commissioner Furman, Chairman Daxton, and a second by Commissioner Watkins. Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much. May I continue with the vote, sir?
Maggie? could
Yes,
you,
sir.
State the address and lot and block number?
Absolutely. Commissioner Furman, would you like me to read the entire, which I have to, unless you'd like to do that?
Please do so.
Absolutely, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Secretary.
Oh, absolutely, I'm so excited. Okay, so here we have a motion. I'm just trying to make it mellow, thank you.
Gotta wake us up.
By, Chairman, Furman. Commissioner Furman makes a motion that the application of United Assets Management, LLC, 641 Broadway, to, and let's get this right, there are 20 unit apartment buildings from 24 to 20, am I correct?
Yes.
Thank you, and demolish an existing two-story building. This, is actually for site plan use, D variances and bulk variances in an H1 hospital zone. With any amendments or conditions, which, was on the record by, Mr. Gary Paparazzi, am I correct, sir?
I think that's how Mr. Furman made the motion.
Absolutely. Electronic spaces are 3, garbage 2 times per week. Anything else that I missed? 17 spaces as well.
Well,
This is the motion.
you gotta include, I'm gonna,
Excuse me, I, can only attend to my attorney. Mr. LaRocca, can you answer that for me?
Go ahead, ask the question again. What was the question again?
Mr. Andy Reid,
any more conditions?
The only condition, from my perspective, that we'll put in the resolution is that you're gonna make the parking available.
I'm gonna give a lease, give a lease to the other sites for a parking.
One at a time. And all the conditions placed on the record by our planner that were agreed to during
I
the
understood
testimony.
17 spaces, am I incorrect?
Yes.
17 spaces, thank you very much. Furman is the first motion, the second motion is Watkins. Commissioners, Commissioner, Barone.
I'd like to approve,
Thank
say
you.
yes.
Commissioner Furman.
Yes, hi, Madam Secretary. Before I issue my vote, may I please say something for the record?
Absolutely, sir.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me. Mr. Reed, thanks for investing in our city of Paterson. I mean, we understand that parking is becoming a big issue. Please take in consideration not just your property, but the others as well. And if there's any issue, please make sure you take control. I'm trusting this project. I feel happy because I like to see this city move forward. And again, thanks for investing in our city of Paterson.
Thank you, Commissioner Furman.
my vote is yes.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Minauro.
My vote is yes.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Watkins.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Commissioner White.
My vote is yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Arenas.
Yes.
And Commissioner Chairman Jackson.
Yes.
7 votes in the affirmative. Congratulations.
Thank you,
This
Commissioners.
application has been granted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your consideration this evening.
Maggie?
Yes, Chairman, I'm here, sir.
We have one more case. Maggie, can you, check and see how many objectors?
I have 7 objectors. It's up to the board how to handle this. I can handle my end, absolutely. As you all know, I'm your secretary. I'll deal with the objectors. You decide if you want to proceed.
The people, this is a, Harry matter that's, been on the books for a while. And
Okay, if you give me 1 second, I will answer that. 1 moment, please.
Just let the chairman talk. Go ahead, Chairman.
it's been on the, books for a while, and I understand that you guys, didn't wanna carry, cases more than once or twice. So do we hear this case or and they have seven objectors and the time is now 10:11. So, it's the board's decision. And if you decide not to hear it, you're gonna have to have a date like right away. So it's up to the commissioners if they,
I could read into the record, when it was carried and
We
why.
don't need to do that right this second. Let the board decide if they wanna stay and hear it tonight, or if they wanna put it off.
everybody jump at once.
Commissioner Minaro. Commissioner Minaro, if you guys are all up for it, I can listen to it tonight.
Or if we carry it for another day, they'd be the first applicant we hear.
But this is Commissioner White, what's the schedule like? Because, I think we already have other people planned for the upcoming week, so this will not be a, discussion right away, am I correct? So,
Maggie, is it possible that, we can,
I could answer all the questions,
all right.
if, all three of them, only if the attorney, Mr. Baraka, approves of it.
Go ahead.
I could answer, but you're gonna have to give me a minute.
Okay,
okay?
a question. Is it possible that,
Everything's possible, sir, everything
that,
is possible. This application was not heard on September 23rd, 21. It was carried to January 20th, which tonight we are actually adopting these minutes this evening. So I will be more than happy to tell you why and how. So day properties, 911, 9 to 13, Day Street was heard and carried on,
I think you're just looking for a date. I think, Maggie, we're just trying to figure out what would be the
well, I'm
soonest date.
trying to figure it out too, but I have to also let the commissioners know that it was heard on January 20th, 22, and was carried to March 10th. I have to let them know, cause that's what they're asking. So that's it, that's all I have, thank you.
Commissioner Baralt here. The objectors, Mr. Chairman Paxton, is there any way if we decide to hear it tonight, that the time could be limited to the objectors? So that we could speed up the case a little bit more?
Sir, it
Tonight.
doesn't, I will handle the objectors, they will be notified and they are listening. This is the, your decision whether to proceed.
Hold on one second. Commissioner Baralt, we could put a few moment time limit on each of them for questions and comments at the end. We could limit the time limit. I would have to look and see what would be appropriate, but if they're all speaking, you're still talking about, you're still talking about 20, potentially 20, 30 minutes at least each.
Mr. Baraka, if I could just interject briefly, we have architect witness, planning witness, and the applicant. Just so you know.
Yeah.
that's gonna be a long night.
Yeah, that's 2 hours at least with the objectors, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, that's probably 12 o'clock. That's like a little bit after 12.
Maggie, is it
Why don't we
possible?
bring it to a vote?
I
Maggie,
cannot hear everyone. And I
I'm gonna need 5 minutes, please. I need 5 minutes, please.
She needs some time to get us together. Let me deal with talk to her and get this done, cause this is.
I just need a 5-minute break, please.
I asked Mr. LaRocca to do so.
go, Melinda.
Alrighty then, thank you. Please mute yourselves.
Maggie. Meg. Charlene. No, I heard one. You're quite welcome.
I'm back.
Okay, I'm back.
Madam Secretary, this is Commissioner Rahim. For the record, I'm back.
Yes, I was going to do that, but I have to wait for the court reporter. If you would wait a moment till I get the chairman on
Okay.
and the board in its entirety, then I will call you. Is that okay, sir?
Yes.
Thank you very much for that.
Meg.
Yes, Chairman.
Is it possible if the
Before
board-
we begin, I must put on the record that Joyed Rohim, our vice chair, has joined the meeting. It is, at this moment, 10:21 p.m. Thank you.
is it possible to expedite this case? To have a special meeting without them paying the extra charges and whatever?
I understand that. If you would give me one moment, let me look at my records.
As soon as
Mr. LaRocca? I need to speak to Mr. LaRocca first because I do not have any access to the agenda other than carried matters. But if you will give me a moment, I think I could come up with a date, sir.
Give me a call, Maggie.
Thank you.
Commissioner Rohim, hopefully everything went well.
Mr. Baraka is gonna handle this from here. Mr. Baraka.
Alright, so I don't have any real control over scheduling. My understanding from speaking to the secretary is with regard to regular meetings, the first feasible date that you'll be able to be heard would be April 28th due to the size of the application and other applications that are scheduled. If in fact it was put on for April 28th, you could coordinate with the zoning office potentially about a special, but then there'd be the requirement for re-notification. I don't know if you guys talking amongst yourself, you're trying to talk to me, I can't hear you if you're trying to talk to me.
I apologize, yeah, we were discussing a little bit between.
No, that's okay, that's okay.
Yeah. We would accept the regular meeting date of April 28th, and I would agree with your suggestion, if we can coordinate a special meeting before that date through your staff, then we would of course have to re-notify. We've done that before, yeah.
And in this case, obviously, we have a lot of objectors.
Right. But as of now, it would go to the 28th without further public notice, I would assume.
I need to, okay,
Go ahead, what were you gonna say?
I need the chairman's permission.
Go, Meg.
Honestly, in all my years of experience, we have April 14th is full. April 28th, I could put it on there. But, a special meeting in this capacity of this application with all the objectors would remove at least 3 cases on a regular meeting. It would be, in my experience, if this application will be on, I think that we could come up with a date that will be accommodating for everyone, but not tonight. I would like to carry this matter to a future date to be determined as the board secretary. There's no way I can do this without having more information from the secretary during the day. I could probably figure something out that would work.
Madam Secretary, are you talking about a special meeting date or another regular
Yes, sir.
meeting date?
I'm speaking about a special meeting, because when you have a case of this capacity with objectors, it will soak up the agenda, and certain people suffer to not be on the regular meeting. If I can come up with something, Mr. Mariconda, tomorrow, I can make sure that if I speak to you and we could come up with something that will work for both of us.
Now, are you thinking in terms of beyond April 28th or sooner, if I may ask?
Absolutely not. I think that in April, if the secretary, her and I think that it's workable for April. Honest to goodness. I just don't know what cases are on.
But for right now, so we don't complicate things and confuse the
I will not, as a secretary, but anything.
Just hold on. We're talking about, and the commissioner's gonna make a decision, the applicant's gonna make a decision. Right now, April 28th is the available date. If a date works out, that's great, it'll have to be renoticed. We're talking about April 28th, commissioners and Mr. Mariconda at the moment.
I would like to hold it with that date, set, with the opportunity to maybe move it up to an earlier special.
Yeah, absolutely, but again, that would require re-notification if that's potentially done. But for purposes of this evening, all I can talk to you about is April 28th.
Yeah.
And I don't wanna confuse the objectors out, if it gets carried, that's going to be the date.
Okay.
But let Maggie try to work out something tomorrow, or whenever she can make it available. So Maggie, I understand what Marco's saying, but you also, if you can define a date.
I could do this, but this is what I need to address with this board. And I don't, at this point, this is the reason why I actually am trying not only to negotiate, but to do what's best for this board. As the secretary, I have a case on April 28th. If I could come up with a meeting, a special meeting, I don't offer that to anyone, because that is something they must pay for. But it is unfair, and this is happening a lot, that this board brought up at the last meeting 2 weeks ago, that said that they wanted for us to move applications forward. So you can't get all these big applications to be put on a regular meeting because the board, they suffered. These people that also have applications are suffering. We cannot take this amount of time to put them on a regular meeting, which eventually will be changed anyway. I have every right as the board secretary to tell you it is not a good move. I really personally, if you want them on April 28th, I will do so. But remember, let me talk. If you want it, I'll put them on April 28th they gotta re-notify if it changes. I'm not here to work with an attorney, I'm here to work with the board. The board made the decision to stop carrying matters that are not heard and taking away time for people who should be on. So that's all I have to say. You make your decision and that is mine.
Maggie, if you could come up with a date before April the 28th, then we'll use that as a meeting.
Alan Mariconda, all I can tell you is, are you listening, sir?
Yes.
March 31st, did you make any agreements with the secretary, the clinical assistant during the day for March 31st?
There is one special meeting already provided with lists and notification to go out for one special meeting that day.
Okay, so if you can, I can't give you that date till I speak to her. But for the carrying purposes only, the matter as the board secretary for Day Properties LLC, 9-13 Day Street, will be carried to April 28th, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. Do you waive all statutory time requirements, sir?
We will accept that and we will continue to work for the special meeting as you discussed. We do waive statutory time requirements.
I will discuss this with the assistant, the secretary during the day. If I find anything different, we will be notified. And I will guarantee that I will put this, action in the newspaper. Thank you very much.
Council,
Yes, sir.
again, I'm not going to be involved in scheduling.
Right.
Having said that, if you're telling me there's already something on for March 31st, this application of this size, I don't think it's wise to try to back it up afterwards.
Yeah.
We're not doing anybody any favors. I don't know what application's on already, I don't know how big it is, but, you
They
know.
usually run 2 to 3 hours each, that's why to piggyback 2 of them at 2 hours to 3 hours each may be a problem, Mr. Americano. I don't know
I
that.
just was responding to her question that there is.
No, I understand, I'm not gonna be involved tonight, I'm just.
Yeah.
No one gets involved. I'm the board secretary. I will make sure it gets done. I will fix it. I am not going to allow this board or any board to discuss scheduling. That is the chairman's decision. We do it together as a whole. But you're putting me in a predicament where I have to decide what to do. I give you the calendar. What is a problem is that I don't know who is on for March 31st. That is why I'm doing that.
I don't believe any of us know that, so if you can come up with a date.
What I am doing is what's best for this board, and I'm done. April 28th, this matter has been carried, to March, April 28th. Mr. Mariconda, if it doesn't pan through, we will make sure that you get a special meeting date, and the secretary will put it in the newspaper. Thank you very much.
Continue to work on it, thank you.
Chairman,
Yes.
this is Commissioner White. I know there were 3 things on the agenda. Why did we go out of order? Why didn't we, who makes the agenda? Because someone has to understand the capacity of what it takes to hear these cases. And 3, and looking at that, someone had to notice that 3 was gonna be too much for one night. So could we try to get that under control?
We only had one.
We were 3 on the agenda.
I know, we only had one though, because one got carried.
Irrelevant to the fact there were 3. There were 3. It was not me, okay?
The secretary sets up the agenda.
Well, do you work with the secretary? That's what I'm asking now.
No, I don't work with,
Okay, do you see the schedule before it comes out? Do you kind of like?
No, I haven't seen the schedule. Have you seen it?
I think, someone needs to work in coordination with this because it's just not done professionally.
And it wasn't done like this before, but.
Well, fine, so let's get it under control, Mr. Chairman.
The secretary, she sets the agenda, so
Okay,
I'll speak to her tomorrow.
Thank you. Yeah, please do, because we work during the day as well. And for us to sit there and just go through these cases haphazardly and knowing that these cases take longer than, a couple of hours and you put 3 on the agenda, granted, 1 got carried, thank God for that. So, we can't do this. We need to
Well,
work.
let's make this straight. Let's do this right. I'm officially, and your secretary, I've been appointed by resolution and appointed by the commissioners. Unfortunately, I was removed as this position, so now it's time for me to work with her, and I am. The only thing is that I didn't know what applications she's putting on. This is why it would be best that all of you come collaborate together and say, work with me, I can't do it on my own.
I'll be down there Monday. I'll be there Monday.
I appreciate that.
I can't do this.
Well, I've been here a long time and I deserve a lot more than I'm getting.
I think the people that are on the agenda they need to be heard. You have people that are on these calls, sitting down there, waiting, now they're gonna have to wait another week, another month. Now, I don't think that's fair either, so.
Exactly.
I think we need to look at everybody in a whole. People not thinking about other people, it's just not us on the board, But, so, yeah, if you can work with her, I'll be down there on Monday to figure out something because this cannot happen. We need to work better, and this is not working better at all.
I agree.
I'm your secretary at night. I was there during the day. This is not for us to discuss at all right now.
Right.
It's not. I'm not trying to say that I'm doing everything right, but when I have to put a special meeting on, special meetings are
Thank you,
not
Maggie.
given during a meeting. You
Do
have
you really want all
All right,
this thing on?
listen, we gotta wrap this
Do
up.
you want all this on?
Thank you.
We're gonna wrap this up. The matter is getting carried to April 28th. To the objectors that are watching, this application is not gonna be heard tonight due to the late hour. It's going to be heard on April 28th. That is the date as it is now. If, I know you heard a lot about different dates and all different things. If, in fact, it changes and it's no longer April 28th, you'll get notice. But this is your notice for April 28th. As you leave here this evening, this matter is scheduled for April 28th. There will be no further notice for April 28th date unless it changes. I apologize that you're here at this late hour and the matter has not been heard. You haven't had an opportunity to be heard, but you will have that opportunity to hear the application. You have an opportunity to question all the witnesses and give a statement at the end if you so choose. It's moved to April 28th. Thank you. So to the objectors, you can leave. We're not gonna discuss this matter anymore. This application is officially carried to April 28th. All right, thank you. We're not talking about this date.
Chairman, can we dismiss? Chairman, can we dismiss, please?
No, we have minutes.
Okay, let's go through the minutes. Please.
May, could you do the minutes, please?
Ooh.
Maggie? Mr. LaRocca, do you have the minutes?
I'm gonna pull it up right now.
January 20th, 7:30 and one at 8.
I apologize, it wasn't the ladies' room.
No problem.
I am so sorry, everyone. I am ready and I am back. The meetings for today is January 20th. Am I correct, Melinda? And Melinda?
January 20th, 7:30 and
7:30
8
and 8, right? Commissioners, Commissioner Rohim.
We need a motion.
Oh. January 20th, 22.
Will Commissioner please move the minutes?
Move it, Commissioner Furman.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second, Commissioner Watkins,
Hawkins and White,
if I'm able to vote.
yes.
Please pull the board.
Commissioners, Commissioner Rohim,
He's not on.
okay. Commissioner Baralt. Commissioner Baralt.
Yes, sorry.
Commissioner Furman,
Yes.
Commissioner Minoru. She's gone. Commissioner Watkins,
Yes.
Commissioner White,
Yes.
thank you. Commissioner Arenas,
Yes.
thank you. Commissioner Vega's out. And Chairman Dexter,
Yes.
thank you very much. The minutes have been adopted. Thank you very much.
There's no other business for this board tonight, meeting's adjourned.
Everyone enjoy their weekend.
Is there a first motion to adjourn this meeting?
Motion to adjourn. Commissioner
Second
White.
motion?
Second, Commissioner Furman.
Thank you very much. Chairman, close the meeting.
Meeting's adjourned.
Enjoy the weekend.
Good night.
Right, everyone. Next week, everybody.
Bye.
difficult.